So I asked a question about Dana Holgerson. Wasn't that great of a question. Mitch Sherman of The Athletic asked a better question about pairing Raiola and Holgerson together. And really, that's a question about Raiola, right? Because Holgerson is gonna do work with Raiola for sure, but Glenn Thomas is also there, and of course Matt Rhule dabbles in quarterback thinking and philosophy. But the comment he made about he's not going to be a great quarterback at 240 pounds, he was very open about the body competition composition line, and then he put out a weight, and the immediate speculation is, well, is that what Dylan weighs?
right?
Or does he weigh less than that and they just don't want him to balloon to 240? Or did he weigh 240 last year? I don't really know. That'll be a question that we're going to be able to ask Dylan. But in putting that comment out there, Matt Rhule is putting his quarterback on a kind of notice, isn't he?
He is. Isn't that interesting that that's the thing he went to? I mean, the previous chat we had with him, whenever it was, a month or two ago, it was more about the leadership piece. You remember that? It was
Well, that's
about
because I asked him specifically about the leadership
it
piece.
was,
Yeah,
but he didn't mince words about that either. He said, "Hey, first he needs to have control of the receiver group, before, and then you need to control the offense, and then you can have the team." So like he was openly, yeah, not critical necessarily, but just honest about kind of what was up ahead of him. The body composition piece he more or less offered on his own. That was not in direct response to a question
that's
about
correct.
it.
That's correct.
So honestly, I view that in a positive light in the sense that it's almost like we're skipping past all these other things that like a quarterback would need to do to be good. Like it's assumed and known that he has a great arm talent. It's pretty well established that he is has a command of the offense unusual to someone his age.
Okay,
His leadership is coming along. Matt Rhule made reference to that again on Tuesday about this idea that, as a freshman, you're the quiet kid trying to earn respect. Now you're establishing your voice. So to me, like if you're talking about body composition, that's, I don't know, fourth, fifth on the list of like things that you want in your quarterback to be. So I take that as like, okay, if these other things are on their way, then this is the thing that he needs to be most working on. And we saw his ability to be mobile was a work in progress last year. He identified that game against Indiana when he had a chance to convert a third down, and he instead he pulled back and threw an incompletion, and that kind of killed a drive, and the game spiraled. We saw the one game against Ohio State where he had a couple big runs, and that was unusual. That was notable at that time. And if everyone's making the Patrick Mahomes comps, like how many times a game does that guy break the back of a defense with a key scramble in a
yeah.
third down spot? So like I think that's what they're working toward. I think they understand that you can't be 240 pounds and scrambling and picking up those key yards and conversions in those spots. So I guess that's kind of how I look at it is, this is if that's the thing that Dylan Raiola has to work on this offseason, like how far ahead is he relative to his peers, other quarterbacks and other teams. I thought it was encouraging in that sense that that's the thing that he's been having to work on.
That's a positive spin on it. I'm not sure that I agree
Well, let's hear it.
with that. Well, I think in terms of you're right in the sense that his command of the offense is probably the most important thing. So being able to run it and understand it is important. I agree with that. And his ability to do that did reduce the number of BS things that happened before the snap. That was a high issue the year before. And quite frankly, Evan, it was an issue for many years
Sure.
under Frost and Riley and even Bo. There were just times when you were like, what are they doing before the snap? What is going on? Didn't happen a lot with Dylan. You're right. That's a good point. That they didn't have a lot of those pre-snap snafus last season. He does understand the game. I think the idea that like he's got to work on that though is almost foundational because it changes everything about the way you throw, the way you move, the way that you plant, all those things. Like it's going to subtly change all of those things, and the fact that he's able to bring that up and be so frank about it means they want to get that done. There's a sense of urgency around it that doing it, working on that is a kind of leadership. They want him to come in elite shape, and Patrick Mahomes after this most recent season said he actually needed to come to next season in that kind of shape, maybe implying that he hadn't. I know that Travis Kelsey kind of said the same thing, and anybody who watched Travis Kelsey last year knows that Kelsey was nowhere near where he was. I don't know, 3 years ago. And so, I think there's a sense of, and maybe Mahomes didn't say that. I feel like he did, but I know Kelsey did, and maybe Mahomes jumped on that too. But Mahomes wasn't quite the same guy that he's been, 5 years ago. And maybe, I think he's probably going to work on his fitness as well. What I would say is that Raiola can certainly look at Patrick Mahomes all he wants. I mean, I think Mahomes is an elite athlete. I think, a guy that you want to watch in terms of like how to do it when you're a true pocket passer, and Dylan really is. He's not some whirling dervish running all over the field. Is
Mhm.
like a Joe Burrow. Because Joe Burrow does not move that much. I mean, he moves some and he can run a little bit, but Dylan's going to be closer to that in the NFL. He's going to stay in the pocket. He's going to be a pocket passer, like a Geno Smith. As you know, Geno can move around, but he's not Mahomes. Mahomes is out, on the edges of the field doing fakes and things like that, and that's all neat stuff to watch. But Mahomes is his speed element has always been there. So I'll be interested to see what happens with that. I felt it was like the first question we're going to ask Dylan, or one of the first questions when he does finally talk, is going to be about his body composition,
Right.
and he's going to have to deal with. So in other words, he's speaking that out in a couple of weeks when we talk to Dylan. It won't be next week because they're on spring break. 2 weeks, 3 weeks. Somebody's going to say, so your coach obviously said you were working on that. How's that coming?
Right.
So it's almost like he's holding them accountable to that. And I understand what you mean by it being a positive thing, but I think it's positive in the sense that I think the level of expectation and urgency that they're going to put on everything he does is going to go way, way up. And I think Dana Holgerson's going to put an energy and expectation on that. I think Matt Rhule's going to put urgency and expectation on that. And I think Glenn Thomas will. All three of those guys. And I suspect that eventually the media will too. I was saying on a radio interview earlier this week, I'm like, if Dylan Raiola isn't one of the top five quarterbacks in the Big Ten, then what are we doing? And I think that's pretty much where it's at. There's no
Well,
reason why he shouldn't be one of the top five quarterbacks in the Big Ten. Am I wrong?
no, I agree. He's got the
We're not going to
pedigree
say
and
the guy at Michigan who's a true freshman is going to be better, are we? I
not
don't
right
think
away.
Bryce
Not right
Underwood.
away.
He's a great talent. He looks like Jaden Daniels on film, but why would he be better? I mean, they're both five-star players. I don't know who's going to take over at Ohio State, but what I know is Julian Sayin didn't play, you know, 800 snaps this season, and Dylan Raiola did. And so, like, from my perspective, and everybody's talking about Dante Moore out at Oregon because he's going to be the guy that takes the place of Dylan Gabriel. Dante Moore, a five-star guy, signs with UCLA, played there for a year, didn't play nearly as well as Dylan Raiola. Dante Moore did not, for a better team than Dylan Raiola played for. To be clear, didn't play nearly as well. Leaves UCLA. I don't know, whatever. He didn't want to be there anymore. Um, and then goes to Oregon, sits, and now he's going to take over the keys of Oregon's offense. Everybody's talking about, Dante Moore. Well, other than the fact that I think Oregon's got better skill players than Nebraska, slightly better, not overwhelmingly better, but better. I don't know why he would be better than Dylan Raiola. I don't, because he wasn't better as a true freshman as Dylan. So like, I feel like what's begun to happen is everybody is just, well, Matt Rhule's a tough guy, and so we'll let him be that, and then no one else will have any expectations. I'm telling you, there's expectations on Dylan, and I think that they're real. And I think what's positive from yesterday is that I think Rhule putting it on him and saying, "Hey, you got to be a leader of this team. You have to be the voice of that offense," and he does. I mean, Dane Key is a really nice guy, right? But he wasn't going in there yesterday firing brimstone by any means. In fact, he name drops Dylan Raiola as one of the reasons why he's there.
Right.
So this is an offense that's going to be led by Dylan. Emmett Johnson to some degree, but Emmett's a pretty quiet guy. I mean, he's positive. He's not going to whatever. Ja'Cory Barney, he's a sophomore. Which offensive lineman's going to be the leader? Well, if Turner's healthy, it's Turner Corcoran. We'll get to the offensive line in a
Might be
second.
Spindler. Yeah.
It's probably going to be Spindler, Turner, or Teddy if Teddy's healthy, those three. But if Turner and Teddy aren't healthy, it's hard for them to lead from the sidelines. I mean, Turner Corcoran at this point has not played a lot of football. A lot of guys on this in this program don't know a lot about his play in 2021. That was 4 years ago. So Dylan, this is his team. It's definitely his offense. And on the defensive side of the ball, if you want to say, well, that's the defense is going to be led by Marquise Buford, I'm fine with that. He probably will be the leader of the defense. He and Deshaun Singleton, and I don't know. I don't know who else. I mean, Cam Lenhart. That's fine. You want to say that, you can say it. But really, this is Dylan's team. And so I think so much of where they go in the next year is going to be how much he takes a jump. And don't tell me it's about all about the receivers. They're good. And I think Dane Key's better than the two transfers they had last year, at least as a receiver. But it's about Dylan's got to bring everybody up a level with him. And
What
that's
what
going
I,
to be what I'm watching.
what I would just add too to that though, and the reason I feel like this body composition conversation is a positive is like it's especially a positive relative to off-season conversations about Nebraska quarterbacks in the past. I mean, a year ago we were talking about what Heinrich Harburg overhauling his throwing mechanics.
Yeah.
A couple years ago, we were talking about Casey Thompson coming in and having to learn the offense quickly. Before that, we were talking about can Adrian Martinez stay healthy and can Nebraska run the ball less and be more well-rounded? Like those are bigger, more fundamental issues. Like those are foundational things you got to figure out. This, yeah, it's important, but it's like it's an off season of getting in shape. Like the other stuff, like the bigger concerns, generally speaking, are in hand. So like I appreciated it. Like, yeah, you need to get better, and this is that area. But like compared to the conversations we've had about Nebraska quarterbacks the last 4 or 5 years, like this is peanuts.
It should be, though. Well, I mean, it should be compared to 2023. Yes, it should be. Dylan's much is a much better quarterback than the starters of 23. Yes. I don't know that he was better last year than Casey was in 22. Mind you, Casey was hurt for 2.5, 3 games, and that was part of Casey Thompson's weakness is he got hurt too much, and he got hurt. He got hurt in 22, and if he hadn't gotten hurt, maybe that team's 6-6. We don't really know. But when Casey was on the field, he wasn't that bad. I mean,
No, he wasn't.
but part of his challenge was health. Now Dylan's tough. Now, one thing you don't ever hear anybody talk about is his toughness. Dylan's a tough guy. He's a tough guy for his age, and he's just a tough guy overall. He's tough. He's not going to miss much. He takes responsibility even when he doesn't have to. So nobody questions the toughness or the character or any of those things. I mean, and I agree with you. That's all very positive. The intangibles are good. He's smart. He's tough. He's a stand-up guy. He'll show up and help the team recruit. Not every quarterback will do that or he wants to do it. And he'll do it. He'll show up to everything. He's over there giving Jawan Gary a hug. Well, he doesn't have to do that, but he cares. And so I appreciate that about Dylan. And there's a lot of things to appreciate about him as a person that aren't necessarily true of every single player or every single quarterback that they've had. There's been some quarterbacks that were kind of reticent of the spotlight, and Dylan's not afraid of it. He's just not. And I appreciate that about him. But I do think that again, the standard for him is higher. And so, like you're right that it's ahead of where Heinrich Harburg was. And I'm not trying to knock Harburg because that guy's an athlete. But the standard for Dylan is, to me, top five quarterback in the Big Ten this year. When's the last time they had that?
Taylor Martinez?
T Magic,
Yeah.
2012. And,
Yeah.
Tommy had a good year in 14. I don't know. We don't need to get into the weeds too much there. Tommy was probably a top five quarterback at some point in those 2014, 2015, 2016 seasons. I mean, my God, he beat Michigan State and Oregon, and none of the quarterbacks since had come close. So, Tommy did some stuff that we probably didn't appreciate enough at the time. But probably since T Magic, the T Magic year in 2012.
Mhm.
And before that, Joe Gans in '08. And before that, it's obviously Zach Taylor
Zach
in
Taylor, yeah.
'06. And then before that, you go back to Eric Crouch in '01. And then, you go from Eric Crouch all the way back to God knows who, and it was always top 10 5. I mean, Crouch, Frost, Frazier Behringer, Keithan McCann, I think, was second team or first team all Big Eight his senior year. They won the Big Ten. They won the Big Eight title. So you go back, and then all of a sudden, you go all the way back to Turner Gill, and it's been top five from 1980 to what to 2001.
Right.
But then they had the gap, and we've had more gaps since. And I think that's the area where Dylan's way closer to a Zach Taylor than he is to a Heinrich Carberg. And so we'll see where it goes.